active dorsiflexion test, the participant shifts their body weight to the front leg in a half kneeling position. On the right leg, the knee is able to get 7 centimeters past the toes, while on the left leg, the knee is able to get 9 centimeters past the toes. There seems to be less mobility on the right leg than the left leg. In the passive test, the client pushes on the floor in a half kneeling position to get her front foot as far away as possible from her toes. On the right leg, the knee is able to get 8 centimeters past the toes, while on the left leg, the knee is able to get 10 centimeters past the toes. There seems to be greater mobility on the left leg as the left knee moves farther from the toes. The active hip flexion test, the non-test leg is in contact with the floor while raising the test leg actively as far as possible. In both the right leg and left hip flexion active test, the active range of motion of her hip with the knee extended appears to be about 70 degrees. The participant maintains a neutral low back curvature through hip flexion for both legs. For the passive test, the test leg is passively raised while the non-test leg is in contact with the floor. In the right hip flexion, the passive range of motion of her hip with the knee extended is about 90 degrees, which is similar with the left leg passive hip flexion. The professional should have used a ruler at the mid-thigh to show where the lateral malleolus of the test leg ankle passes. Active shoulder flexion test, while maintaining a neutral low back, the participant lowers their fist actively as far as possible. In both the right and left shoulder flexion, the fist is aligned with the C7. This indicates a restricted shoulder mobility. It would have been more accurate if the professional measured the distance between the position of the fist and the client's C7. There's a greater mobility in the passive shoulder flexion test as both the right and left shoulder flexion, the fist is inferior or below the C7. Mitchell provided 3 different distances for each direction of the Y-balanced lower quarter test in order to find the direction. We will see the other 2 trials later in the video. In average, the right foot reaches 52 centimeters in the anterior direction with a neutral knee alignment, while the left foot reaches 51 centimeters in the anterior direction. In the posteromedial direction, the right foot reaches 41 centimeters in average, while the left foot reaches 42 centimeters. Finally, in the posterolateral direction, the right foot reaches 53 centimeters and the left leg reaches 56 centimeters. The client's leg length was measured in order to measure the composite motion. Her leg length was 85 centimeters. The composite motion for the left leg was 58% and the right leg it was 57%. Thus, the left leg appears to have a more stable, better mobility than the right leg. Professional provides a frontal view to show the client's knee and hip alignments during the ankle dorsiflexion tests. The participant's knees appear to be in neutral alignment with the hip and foot in both legs during the passive and active tests. There seems to be more restriction on the ankles during the active test than the passive tests. Now the professional provides different side views for the Y-balanced lower quarter test. He also shows 2 more distances for each direction to find the average length, which was already previously stated.
Yes, there was a difference in the client's passive and active mobility based on the observations and the measurements. For the comparison of active and passive mobility, active mobility has less mobility than passive mobility due to the external force. The external force was happening because the client in the video. Yes, the client's passive and active mobility influence their Y-balance test results because when the client was having the ankle dorsiflexion test, she showed greater mobility on her left leg than her right leg. And the results on the Y-balance test shows that there is higher measurements on the left leg than the right leg.
I believe these 4 tests are the perfect examples to find out if someone is mobile enough or like has good mobility, ankle dorsiflexion, hip flexion, and shoulder flexion and Y balance switch. And I would use this test for Frederick Anderson, the goalie from Toronto Maple Leafs. He knows that he has like limited active range of motion and probably the passive range of motion, because these two are connected to each other. And by doing this test, we can find out that in which joint and in which test he has the lower range of motion, and try to solve the problem, or like try to increase his range of motion by doing some specialized training or physiotherapy, and improve the results for the goalie. Thank you.